thank you for coming to this LinkedIn and networking session of our Student Optimization Summit. So I'm the one that introduced and did the welcome at today's event, but just in case you signed on a little bit later, I'll give you a reintroduction. So again, my name is Betsy Chea, and I'm one of the associate directors here at the University Career Center. And I've got many monitors that I'm looking at, so pardon me if my eyes aren't exactly on the camera. But yes, so happy to have you here today. This is going to be a condensed, kind of highlighted version of learning about LinkedIn and sharing with you all some of the great tips and features and best practices for really either creating or enhancing your #1 professional networking social media platform of LinkedIn. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my esteemed moderator for today. She's one of our peer educators who does great work for us. So Erica, if you want to just pop on and you can do your audio and or video and just introduce yourself. And Erica will be the one who is moderating the chat and to see if y'all have any questions or wanting to know anything else. So Erica, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Erica, as Betsy said. I'm a peer educator here at the Career Center, and usually we do a lot of resume editing and cover letters, but we also do sometimes get a couple of questions about LinkedIn and networking, so you guys are in for a treat.
All right, fantastic, Erica. Thank you so much. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We have such great information, and we do need to promptly end our session, but we'll have a little bit of time because we're starting early, but we will make sure to end our session at around 10:45 a.m. To make sure that y'all can get a little bit of a break. Maybe you need some water, use the restroom before hopping back on a little bit before 11 a.m. so that you can catch our wonderful keynote speaker. And I'll put the link in our chat at the end so that you can make sure to just click on that link and you'll know where to go for the next session, which is our keynote. All right, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and get started so I can share with you those tips on really making your LinkedIn profile and learning about networking and how you can succeed in both of these areas. So what we're really looking at today, the topics that we're going to be going over and what I want you to be able to leave here knowing is the differences between LinkedIn and your resume. All right, so both of them serve similar functions, however, they are not the same. And so we're going to go over some of those similarities as well as some of those differences. Also, what you're going to learn today is those general tips. And like I talked about, best practices for your LinkedIn as well as networking in general, okay? And then lastly, you're going to find out just really more of what researching and really making those connections, you know, how that's going to benefit you and what is the advantage. All right, so you're going to learn all about the what, the why, the hows, and we're going to cover it all here for you in a short amount of time, so stay with me. All right, so as we're talking about networking, right, because LinkedIn is that online social media form of networking, but there are other forms of networking that y'all are definitely going to utilize and need to know about. So some of these other forms of networking include attending virtual meetings, you know, so maybe it's that you're asking for information in those meetings. There's on-site connections, of course, right? So maybe where you're going to go meet the employer or you're going to go onto the job site for the internship versus perhaps maybe there's some social distancing with the global pandemic that we're coming from. And then other types of virtual professional networking, so not just LinkedIn, but like we talked about, there's virtual information meetings. And these can all happen through the University Career Center. If you're wondering, okay, you know, I like this idea about networking, not really sure where to go or how to find one. All the ones that are listed here on this slide deck and that I'm talking about are events and ways that the University Career Center can offer you to be able to participate and attend some of these networking events. So we've got information sessions with industry partners and with recruiters. You can attend our virtual career fairs. So we've got one actually coming up in this fall, which is very exciting. You can learn company-specific information at these virtual career fairs and career expos. We have employer-led classes and workshops that are happening both in person in the fall as well as virtual. And then also we have employer guest speakers at student organizations here at UTD. So that's just another way that will allow you to network and start connecting with these industry leaders and hiring managers who are the ones, you know, that have the hiring authority. So super exciting. You can also join professional association groups online, virtually, as well as, of course, you know, when and if they start meeting in person again. And even as a student, you can maybe even drop into some of those sessions. All right, so now let's get into the benefits of networking. What does that look like? All right, benefits of networking can lead to internships. It can lead to you getting the job offer. There's amazing, valuable mentorship and guidance opportunities to receive career advice and career support, and just even being able to ask your questions and hearing from an expert. There is the 7 degrees philosophy. I don't know if you've ever heard the 7 degrees of, you know someone who knows someone who knows someone. And so that definitely comes into play on LinkedIn, as well as, you know, the other networking forms that we just talked about. So, you know, it's who you know, right? So you never know. So sorry about that. Something came up on my computer screen through Teams and another call, and it was like taking up my whole screen. All right, so let's keep going then with the benefits. So it gives you fresh ideas. You can get a whole new perspective, right, from hearing from different people and getting that diversity of thought. Again, those experts in the field. And then, of course, networking can help you advance your career, right? So you never know if you might get that promotion or take it to the next level, but that's always a possibility as well. And then last but certainly not least, you know, benefits of networking is that it's really going to boost and increase your confidence. Because I mean, how many people know that public speaking and going to large networking events or networking in general, you know, can be a little daunting for a lot of people, which is totally understandable. But it's one of those, the art of, the more you participate, the more you practice in this form of networking, the more that, you know, you are going to find your rhythm and feel more comfortable and then thus more confident. So these are all of the amazing benefits of networking, both online as well as in person. Okay. So, and actually, if you want to make sure that all of your mics are muted, so that we're not getting any feedback sound during the presentation, for those of you that might have just logged in. So now we're going to go ahead and move towards the LinkedIn portion of today's session. All right, most of you have probably heard of LinkedIn, or if you haven't, again, this is the #1 professional networking site that is used across the globe. And especially with the pandemic and everyone having to work remote, including employers and industry and these recruiters, really LinkedIn has probably launched itself to the #1 spot for recruitment, for filtering out and sourcing candidates, you know, for inviting people to interviews and possibly even, you know, offering the job. So these are all amazing features of LinkedIn, knowing that it has blown up. It's already been the largest of any form of professional networking. However, again, with us all working in this virtual space, it definitely, I'm sure, has even increased its numbers far and wide. So with LinkedIn, we're going to look at what is the importance of LinkedIn. And you can see here, 95% of recruiters use LinkedIn to find candidates. Also, this is a way that, again, you can find opportunities. You can join professional groups. If you want to target specific majors or target certain information that you're interested in, you can find that on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, it's very important for you to be mindful that this is your virtual brand. All right, so this is really the way that you are marketing your own professional brochure of yourself. And I say that, a virtual brand, because when you think about some of those big brands that have really made a name for themselves over time, right? They've really gone through the test of time, such as companies like Nike, Google, all right, Apple, Mercedes-Benz. These are all big names that you know who they are. And so same with yourself, same with your own branding. You're going to want to make sure to keep in mind that LinkedIn is just another facet of you branding yourself professionally. All right. And I still see, I think a mic might be on. So if you can just all make sure you're muted, because I do hear some background noise. But also the importance of LinkedIn. Eric, I don't know if you want to maybe reach out to the folks who might need to mute their mics here. But it can help your ranking and boost your name in a Google search. So by you having a phenomenal LinkedIn profile and recruiters are coming to your page and seeking you out and looking for you, every time that someone hits on your page, that is going in Google Analytics to really boost your name in the searches, all right? LinkedIn really serves as a digital form of a Rolodex of your contacts. And those of you who maybe are born after 2005, you may not know what a Rolodex is. And so a Rolodex is a whole list of contacts on like note cards that you can thumb through quickly and find your contacts. But again, you know, LinkedIn and us moving into this virtual space has really transferred all of that to be virtual. And so LinkedIn serves as a great source of a Rolodex. Also, it allows you to research various companies and the employees. You can tap into industry news on LinkedIn, as well as being able to conduct alumni searches, which is something that is going to probably be a game changer for a lot of you. To be able to go in there, and if you're thinking, okay, you know, Miss Chea is telling me about networking and how to do it, and you know that it's really important, but you might think, gosh, I don't even know where to start. One suggestion and one recommendation that I have for you all is to start with the alumni, people who graduated from UTD. A lot of times alumni love giving back to their alma mater. And they really like connecting with people who are current UTD and or are just graduating. Because again, that aspect of helping their own, you know, having that sense of belonging and that commitment and loyalty, you know, for fellow comments. So that is super exciting. And then of course, goes without saying, you know, the aspect of being able to have that powerful networking on LinkedIn as a professional tool. That is just going to absolutely be so crucial for each of you as you are in your job and internship search in this virtual age. All right, so next we're going to look at how to get a custom URL on LinkedIn. All right, so as you may know, URLs, the web address, a lot of times they can show up as a whole bunch of letters and numbers that just maybe don't even make sense. They don't spell anything. It can just be like a long listing, right, of letters and numbers and symbols. Well, in this case, we really suggest highly that you get a custom URL web address for your LinkedIn profile, right? This is all part of your marketing. This is all part of your branding strategy. Every time a recruiter clicks on your name, they'll be able to see your web address as part of your branding. So for instance, for mine, it might look something like Betsy Chea at LinkedIn.com, right? Instead of the whole alphabet and numbers, you know, I'm customizing it so that it shows up as my name or some derivative of my name. Because again, you want that recruiter at any chance they get to remember who you are. So the directions to be able to do a custom URL is to be able to edit your profile screen. And then at the bottom, there's going to be a gray window and it shows your basic information. From there, you're going to see a public profile URL. At that point, you're going to click edit next to the URL and then just specify and come up with what you want your address to be. So like we talked about, it could be your name, it could be your name with your middle initial, it could be your first initial with your last name, you know, whatever it needs to be, so that again, it's part of your marketing brand. And then when you're finished, you're going to click set custom URL. All right, so that is the instructions and the recommendation of how to make sure that you're customizing your own URL on LinkedIn. All right, so now we're going to get into the part of this session talking about LinkedIn and the similarities and the differences with your resume. All right, they are similar because it showcases, both of them showcase your professional accomplishments, who you are as a professional. They both tell what it is that you're liking to accomplish. And of course, both need to be updated regularly, right? So those are the ways in which LinkedIn, there are some similarities, but most importantly, I'll have you know that it's not your resume. So that's why there's that big circle with a cross through it to show you, it's not meant to be just a copy and paste of your resume. The reasons that LinkedIn is different is because the purpose of LinkedIn is completely different, right? It's your online marketing networking tool. And so for LinkedIn, it's going to be more casual. It's meant to be a little bit more informal. So not as, with the resume that you're, having all these bulleted statements and you're not using any first person pronouns, right? Like I, me, or my, like that's not supposed to go on the resume. But on LinkedIn, because it's a more casual setting, that it does allow you to be able to say, oh, I anticipate this, or I'm really passionate about X, Y, and Z because of. So it really wants to then have you share more of your personality in ways that perhaps on the resume that it's not appropriate or there's not room for. All right, so on LinkedIn, again, it allows you to really showcase kind of your characteristics and your features, your aspirations. Another great thing about LinkedIn is that it allows for people to really share what it is that they're wanting to get into. So this is a great aspect for those of you that maybe don't have a lot of career experience or people that are moving into a new field. And so allowing people to really engage and be able to share with the audience, why is it that they're wanting to get into biomedical? Why is it they're wanting to get into marketing? And being able to share those aspects about themselves on LinkedIn. Another huge, powerful component, which makes LinkedIn very different than the resume, is the media section. So there's a featured media section within LinkedIn, and it's titled such, features. And within what's featured, that is the area where you can upload any of your publications, any maybe interviews or presentations, anything that you've recorded on yourself or that has been recorded. Of course, if you get the correct permissions, but you can upload that into LinkedIn so that people can really have a sense of who you are and how you bring value, and just including that in your media feed within LinkedIn. All right, so those are just some of the differences between LinkedIn and the resume. So hopefully that was helpful for you to be able to distinguish, what makes them similar, but also there's some big differences as well that you're going to want to remember. All right, so next let's get into making sure that you're including a great professional photo of yourself, right? You need to upload that onto LinkedIn, which that's also another difference between LinkedIn and the resume, where the resume, it's not advisable, to include your photo on the resume. However, on LinkedIn, that's one of the big recommendations that you're going to want to make sure to include is a good photo of yourself. And the definition of a good photo here would include that it doesn't have to necessarily be this high gloss, high cost professional photograph, but that, you got to make sure that the photo looks like you. If you've got a smartphone or a phone that has an adequate camera, you can certainly, utilize that, either have someone take it for you or set it up so that, it's taking one of yourself on a timer, whatever you have access to. You want to make sure that you would wear something that's at least business casual. So maybe something that you would attend a professional meeting. But again, this could depend on what industry you're going into, right? So if you're going into kind of a startup that has a very laid back philosophy and culture, then it could be dressed down a little bit. Whereas if you are trying to get into one of the top 4 accounting firms, then you are going to want to dress the part, and as far as maybe wearing what you might to the interview. All right, so just really think about what is the role, what is the company, and then you can take your photo accordingly. You're going to want to make sure in your photo that the background is not distracting. All right. So when in doubt, just go neutral. Have a white wall or a tan wall behind you, and just make sure that it's not anything too bright, too loud, too distracting. All right. Making sure that within your photo that your head would fill up about 60% of the frame. All right. And of course, making sure that it's centered, that it's not just capturing like part of your cheek, or maybe that the coloring might be a little off. You want to really make sure to have those things perfected. And then of course, avoiding things like taking selfies, inside your car or maybe outside of like a store. Again, that just lends to the fact of trying to make it the most professional you can. All right, so those are the tips for making sure that you're getting a good photo to upload into your LinkedIn profile. All right, we're going to move next to headlines and what makes a good headline. So you're going to want to make sure to actually create and come up and write a really exciting headline that really is a good descriptor of you. All right, so you're not going to want to generate some automated, very dull, generalized headline. All right, it wants to be succinct. It really needs to showcase your speciality, your value proposition, and really answer the question for the recruiter, so what, right? Like, what is it that you bring to the table? That's what you really want to answer in your headline. So you're going to speak directly to the audience that you're trying to get their attention from. You're going to want to use keywords or industry buzzwords of the field that you're trying to get into. And of course, you can be very creative in this. So you can share what it is that you're aspiring to do or seeking to do, especially for those of you, that haven't been in the field yet or that long. All right, so those are the tips for having a great headline. And then for summary space. So there is a summary section in LinkedIn, and here are some of the tips to make your summary space look the best. You don't want to waste the space, all right? You can use first person to tell your story, 3 to 5 paragraphs max, right? We're not trying to write a novel. You don't want to start rambling. You can include, again, those buzzwords, keywords, show why you're passionate, talking about your relevant qualifications, industries that you might have been exposed to, things that you're proud of, and of course, again, showing your value, right? Your value and a little bit of your personality. You want to, of course, stick to what you know. You're not going to include anything that you're not familiar with or that you don't really know about, right? You can include star statements in LinkedIn, just like you could your resume, your cover letter, and during interviewing, right? Star statements is that formula to be able to really succinctly and concisely share and quantify your accomplishments. So STAR stands for being able to tell the situation, T is for task, A is for what action you took, and then R stands for what is the result. So those are the acronym of STAR to be able to quantify your accomplishments. And then you can approach your summary as you would making an elevator pitch or your 60-second commercial about yourself. So, kind of the couple liners that you might share with folks of who you are and how you add value. So that's what you're going to want to remember for the summary space. All right, moving now to uploading some of those media files that we talked about earlier. All right, so in this featured section of LinkedIn, this is, again, where you can showcase what projects and relevant work that you've completed. And so in the section, again, you can have links to websites, to articles, you can have documents, and then, of course, your other media, right? So even your resume could be uploaded here again. Looking into what keywords and skills that you can have on LinkedIn. You're going to want to utilize search functions to be able to hone in on your specific keywords and your skill sets. All right, so you can list up to 50 different skills that you feel like you are qualified and that you're knowledgeable of. And your skills can be updated at any time. So listing your skills in LinkedIn adds additional keywords and allows connections to be able to endorse you. All right, so there's the keywords and skills section that, again, you can pick up to 50 skills, to showcase what your knowledge and how you're adding value. And then as well as an endorsement section where then people and your colleagues and peers can go in and vouch for you. So it's not necessarily a recommendation. It's like a shorter version of a recommendation where they're simply clicking on a skill set that they see of yours and say, you know what, yes, I have seen Molly present and she's an excellent presenter. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to endorse her and vouch for her that she's a great presenter, right? So it can be as simple as that. That's an example of an endorsement. All right, so including a current job entry, right? So this is going to be important for those of you, again, that haven't gotten into the field yet, or maybe haven't graduated, or maybe you recently graduated and again, you know, just still trying to get into your field. So this is where LinkedIn is great. It allows you to come up with a dummy job listing for yourself. And so in this dummy job listing, you can include a job title that maybe you're targeting. So maybe you haven't gotten an offer yet, but you can put in here that you're a financial analyst in training, or that you're a social worker in training. You can also follow up with a phrase like that you're available or that you're seeking a new opportunity, and you would put this in the name of the company box. All right, so this is a way that, again, for those of you that maybe don't have a lot of experience or any experience, for you to be able to showcase what you're aspiring and seeking to get into. And then this is how you can list it then as a current job entry within LinkedIn. So you don't have a lot of spaces of blank, you know, where it's just white space and there's like nothing listed. You really want to fill up the space with meaningful and strategic, relevant ways to showcase yourself. All right, moving on to being able to include volunteer experience and anything on the side that maybe you all have worked on. So in this section of volunteering, definitely you want to keep in mind to never underestimate what you bring to the table with your volunteering and side experience. So you're not going to want to leave off any experience just because you might not think it's relevant. Definitely part-time jobs and side gigs are very common, and they can be very important in being able to show a hiring manager what you're capable of. And so then, of course, you can add and update your current experience with some of these side gigs and volunteering opportunities, and that'll create a better way for you to get noticed. All right, another recommendation here is to make sure that you're requesting one LinkedIn recommendation a month. All right, so you want to make sure that you're strategic in who you ask for the recommendation. Don't be afraid to, you know, leave off or cut out any recommendations that are maybe out of date or not as relevant. And then, of course, making sure that you're keeping them the most relevant and current that you can, right? So having a recommendation from 2002, right? I mean, that's okay, but, you know, I'm sure hiring managers are going to want to see recently what others have to say about you. So you want to make sure to keep those recent. I'll just give you just a minute to look through an example of what some recommendations look like on LinkedIn. So these are just some examples for you to review here. If you can see what Miss Sambanet wrote, as well as Mr. Owen Jenkins. So you can take a look at those really quickly just to get an idea. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep going here now that you've got an idea of what recommendations, you know, what those might look like. So we are moving right along here, and we are at the last step of what you're going to want to think about in your LinkedIn profile. So we got to the end, and we are almost ready to go. If you've, you know, followed this long and have completed all those steps and tips that we talked about. But you're going to want to remember for this last step that you need to visit your privacy settings within LinkedIn. And you're going to want to make sure once all of those elements of what we talked about are complete, so that you have a great, you know, profile picture, you've got a great summary, you've got a powerful headline, that you've got some recommendations and endorsements, right? So once you know, had all of those, then you can turn your privacy setting to the open to opportunity tab. And this will allow for recruiter visibility so that they can see your profile as a whole. All right, so making sure that you've listed it, that you're open to opportunities, so that they know that they can reach out to you if that's what you're wanting for some of those opportunities. All right, so it's a big, important last step that you definitely don't want to forget, because that's going to make it so that people know that they can get a hold of you and that you're interested in their opportunities potentially. All right, so just going over again some of those key points and takeaways for you of networking in all of its glory. Some things to think about both on LinkedIn as well as in person. You never want to stop connecting professionally, right? We talked about the whole, it's all who you know in 7 degrees. So you just never know where your next opportunity might lie. You know, maybe it's not through a direct contact, but perhaps it's through someone someone that you talk to, you know, that they know. Again, always trying to make the best impression you can, because you never know who's listening or who's going to share what information. On LinkedIn specifically, you're not necessarily going to add, you know, a ton of people that you don't know, right? Like you wouldn't just try to connect with like 5,000 people in a day, perhaps. So again, that adds to being strategic and being very intentional with who you are trying to make these connections with, right? How is it going to add value to what you're trying to do, and how will you add value, you know, to what they're trying to do? You can import your contacts in LinkedIn. You can definitely, it's recommended to include a note. So if you are reaching out to people that you really don't know, or maybe it's a second or third connection, my recommendation is always to include a brief note, right? So not just sending like, I'd like to connect, and have it default to that very generalized, you have a connection. You know, you want to make sure to add that brief personalized little note of, it can be something as brief as, you know, hi, my name's Betsy. I met you at the UTD Career Fair last spring, and I'm really interested in hearing more about what your company has to offer from when we last talked. So something like that, right? So it's not a novel, but it definitely shares with that recruiter how it is that you're connected to them and why you're reaching out and how you know them. It also allows that people search function within LinkedIn, as well as the alumni search tool, which both are going to be hugely helpful as you're trying to make some of these meaningful connections. All right, so some final thoughts here as we're wrapping up this session is not to go overboard, right? So, and that means in lots of different areas. So not having a distracted photo, you don't want to go overboard with that. Not going overboard with connecting with like a whole bunch of people that you don't know, and not going overboard in terms of having too much content throughout your LinkedIn or even your resume, right? Or even just networking in general, you know, to kind of like ramble on and on. You want to keep it concise and really, again, share who you are and how you bring value. Like those are the key points that you're going to want to take away from today's section. Always follow through is hugely important, no matter what sector or whatever field that you're going into, right? People want to know that you're reliable, that you do what you say you're going to do. So that really lends itself to, again, having that integrity of follow through. And then, of course, being actively and meaningfully engaged, both in LinkedIn as well as when you're networking in general, right? So knowing that, yes, we all have smartphones, right? A lot of us, or smartwatches. And we all know of those folks who are like constantly checking their phone or checking their watch every 2 seconds. But you just want to be cognizant of that, right? Because if a recruiter sees that you're doing that, you know, that could indicate to them that you're just not interested, or that, you know, that they're a waste of your time, or, you know, who knows what they would deduct. But again, just so you're actively engaged in making these meaningful interactions, that'll set you up the best. All right, so now we are to the end of it. We made it, guys. And so I guess with this, go ahead and ask any questions that you have from today's session, or if you have any questions on career development in general. I am happy to try to answer the best I can. But definitely, please know that we would love for you to reach out to the University Career Center. You know, definitely, this is not meant to be a one and done scenario. We love that you're attending, but if you are finding that, you know, yeah, I do need help with my job search, or I do need help coming up with a good resume, or, you know, I don't really know how to do an internship during a pandemic. Like, what does that look like? So there's so many components of how the University Career Center can help you. So we definitely want to have you come in and connect with us. Come see us in person. We're going to be here August 2, 100% on campus. But if it's before then, definitely we're happy to meet with you virtually as well. Okay, so any questions, Erica, that you can see in the chat box, or any hands that you see that are raised?
Not yet, Betsy. But don't be shy, guys. Just because there's you might have a question, someone else might have a similar question. There's no such thing as silly questions. We're here to help.
Okay, Erica, if you don't mind, while we're waiting for any questions to pop through, if you can put our general University Career Center website in the chat, as well as our email address. And so that way, you know, anyone that walks away thinking, okay, I didn't, you know, ask my question during the session, but I do want to get a hold of them. I do know I need to make an appointment. You know, I do know I need help interviewing. Whatever it may be, you know, we can help you. So that way they can get a hold of us and know where to find us, Erica. That way, if they leave this session, they can still have access to be able to get a hold of us at any time.
On it, Betsy. We do have a quick question asking about if the slides will be available anywhere or where the recording can be found.
Okay, definitely. So good question. We do have our own YouTube channel. So I tell you, the University Career Center, we are on it. And so we do have our YouTube channel. So all of our presentations that have been edited to make sure that, you know, there's not any tech difficulties, or that the sound and the audio is coming through, as well as the visuals. Those have all been uploaded to our YouTube channel, okay? So if you've got questions on that, again, feel free to reach out to us, and then we can share that information with you. So we do have our YouTube channel that we have all of our uploaded, finalized, and edited content on topics such as like resumes, and I believe we have one on professionalism, and there might be one on LinkedIn. I know I just recorded one, and today's session is also going to be recorded. So who knows, you might see this pop up on our YouTube channel as well. Good question.
Thank you, Betsy.
Any other questions?
Yes, someone is wanting to know a little sneak peek about employer-led classes or workshops happening this semester.
Oh, yes, 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 I love it. So we actually have several exciting events. Let me just get to my Airtable a minute here to make sure that I'm sharing with you all of our goods. So some of our employer or panelists, panel events that we have coming up is Women in Tech. So all of you who are interested in what a career in tech and being a woman, you know, what that looks like, how to get ahead, how to make yourself stand out. That is happening on September 16 at 3 p.m. Okay, and that's going to happen on campus, but I believe it's also going to be streamed virtually as well. So that's happening September 16. Women in Tech, and I don't know, Erica, if you're able to type these in as I'm saying them. So Women in Tech, September 16 at 3 p.m. And that's going to be happening in SSB, 3rd floor, the seminar room. Okay. We also have How to Interview Like a Pro. We might have some industry partners attending that event. So How to Interview Like a Pro on October 7 at 3 p.m. That'll also be in SSB. And then we've got Day in the Life for ATech. So hearing from some industry experts on what a particular field looks like in the creative fields. So that's October 20 at 12 p.m. There's also going to be alternatives to med school. And so you can hear from industry experts what some of those alternatives look like for them. And that's happening October 28 at 3 p.m. And then we also have a Day in the Life, so another session, and this is geared towards A&H students who might want to know what a particular career field looks like from someone who's already in the industry. How did they break through? What do they like about their job? And so that's happening November 11, 12 to 1 p.m. So those are just a couple of our employer-led events. But we do have more. There's a JSOM finance workshop that's happening with mock interviews. There's going to be an EPS and a JSOM finance workshop panel. Those are both September 10. The first one's at 10 a.m. with that finance workshop, and the EPS and JSOM panel is happening at 1 p.m. There's an employer information session happening on September 30th, and there's more details to come on that. And then, of course, our big career fairs. So just-in-time career fair on November 17, a volunteer expo on August 26, and the All Majors virtual career fair on September 22. All right.
Unfortunately, I did miss some of those presentations, but I did start up a message with our website and our email address so they can
Perfect.
have some great access to that. We also have another question, which is what's a great way to maintain connections on LinkedIn? I've reached out to people and have gotten in touch, but how should I maintain these connections?
Oh, that's a great question, Erica. Thanks for reading that one. So to answer that question, best practices of maintaining, and again, that follow through that we talked about in today's session would be kind of a nice blend, right? That perfect in between that you don't want to be like harassing and bombarding that recruiter's inbox, right? So you're not going to like message them every day or anything like that. But I would recommend, if you haven't heard from them in a couple weeks, it's more than appropriate to go ahead and reach back out. And in reaching back out, you could even ask, is there another method of reaching you that is more effective? Do you not maybe check LinkedIn as often, or maybe you check email more? So you could find out if there's a better method for you to communicate with that recruiter. So that would be my advice, is wait a couple weeks, give them a couple weeks. And if you still haven't heard from them, then going ahead and reaching out again, and then finding out if there is another method that they prefer to communicate with. But good question there. And then also for those of you who asked, and I know, Erica, you were trying to keep up with the events and you did a great job. But students, if you're wanting to know about our events, they're all listed on Handshake, and they will all also be listed here in the next week or so on the Comet calendar. All right, so you're going to be able to see our events both on our website, on Handshake, as well as on the UTD Comet calendar. So all of our events that I just talked about, you will see those listed there in the next week or two. So that way you won't miss anything. All right, fantastic. Well, if there's not anything else, Erica, and again, feel free, definitely we want to see you. We don't want this to be a one and done. This is just a preview of all the ways that University Career Center is here to help support you all and help you achieve your goals. So without further ado, Erica, thank you so much for your great moderating. And I'll let us go ahead and break so you can get ready for the keynote speaker. In the chat, I am going to put the link to the keynote speaker session. You can just click right here and know where to go next. All right, everyone. So I just posted in the chat what the keynote link is in Teams, so that go ahead and join a little bit before 11 so that you're not joining late, so that you can hear our esteemed keynote address by Mr. Archie Nettles Jr. Okay, so go ahead and click there, and I'll see you here in a few minutes. So thank you so much for joining our session today. We're so glad that you're here, and we've got more in store for you, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon.